In the bustling town of Umons, where the rooster's crow signaled the start of another day of market noise and laughter, stood the old brick walls of St. Anthony's Community School. It was a place where dreams were shaped, friendships were built, and lessons, both from books and life, were learned. But among all the laughter and morning songs of the pupils, there was one name that brought silence wherever it was heard: Ezekiel the Terrible. Ezekiel was tall for his age, with a broad chest and eyes that seemed to burn with mischief. His father was a well-known soldier, and Ezekiel often bragged that no one in the whole town could dare challenge him, not even the teachers. He bullied everyone: boys, girls, even the younger ones who only just learned to write their names. If a boy came to school with a new pair of sandals, Ezekiel would take them. If a girl brought fried plantain for lunch, Ezekiel would snatch it before she could take a bite. He would push, mock, and torment anyone who stood in his way. No one dared report him, for they feared his wrath. Once, a brave boy named Ton complained to the headmaster after Ezekiel had beaten him and torn his exercise book. The next day, Ezekiel cornered him behind a mango tree, gave him 2 heavy slaps, and whispered, "Next time, your tongue will pay." From that day, no one spoke against him again. Ezekiel rode the schoolyard like a king. During sports, he chose who played and who sat out. During assembly, he would stand at the back, daring anyone to meet his gaze. Even the teachers avoided trouble with him. His father's influence was strong, and no teacher wanted to lose their job over a student's misbehavior. Then, one bright Monday morning, a new face appeared. The boy's name was Chidi, a transfer from another village school. He was skinny, so thin that his uniform hung loosely on his frame, and his school bag looked almost bigger than him. His voice was soft, and he smiled often. When the headmaster introduced him to the class, many students whispered among themselves, "This one won't last. Ezekiel will eat him alive." Ezekiel, sitting at the back, smirked when he saw Chidi. "Oh, fresh meat," he muttered under his breath. That very day, during break time, he made his move. Chidi was sitting quietly under the Udola tree, eating his lunch of gari and groundnut, when Ezekiel and his gang approached. Well, Ezekiel began, his voice dripping with arrogance. "New boy, haven't you heard? You must pay tax to eat here." Chidi looked up, puzzled. "Tax? What kind of tax?" "The Ezekiel tax," one of the followers sneered. "You give him your food, and maybe you get to eat tomorrow." Chidi's eyes met Ezekiel's, calm but firm. "I'm sorry," he said softly, "but I don't think I owe you anything." Ezekiel laughed loudly, clapping his hands mockingly. "Did you hear that, boys? The skeleton thinks he has a mouth." Without warning, Ezekiel snatched the bowl from Chidi's hands and poured the gari and groundnuts onto the ground. A ripple of laughter ran through the watching crowd. Chidi stood up slowly, brushing the dust off his shorts. He looked at his spilled food, then back at Ezekiel. His eyes didn't burn with anger, but something deeper, pity. "I don't know why you do this," Chidi said quietly. "But one day, you meet someone who won't fear you." The laughter died down a little, as if the wind had changed. Ezekiel frowned. "And who would that be?" "You." Chidi didn't answer. He simply walked away. That night, the story spread through the school like harmattan fire, how the new boy had talked back to Ezekiel without trembling. Some said he was foolish, others said he was brave. Ezekiel, however, was furious. No one had ever spoken to him that way and walked away. He swore that the next day, he would make an example of Chidi. The next morning, during sports, Ezekiel challenged Chidi to a wrestling match. "If you're man enough," he shouted before everyone, "come and wrestle me. Let's see if that mouth of yours can help you now." The pupils gathered around the field in excitement. It wasn't every day they got to see Ezekiel in a fight, and this time his opponent was the small, gentle new boy who looked like the wind could blow him away. Chidi hesitated at first. "I don't fight," he said. Ezekiel laughed again. "Of course you don't. You're scared." But the crowd began to chant, "Chidi! Chidi! Chidi!" They were tired of living in fear, tired of Ezekiel's rule. For the first time, someone had stood up to him, and they wanted to see what would happen. Chidi finally stepped forward. "Fine," he said, with a quiet determination. "But if I win, you must promise never to bully anyone again." The crowd gasped. Ezekiel grinned. "Agreed. And when I win, you'll shine my shoes every morning." The fight began. Ezekiel rushed at Chidi with the confidence of a lion pouncing on a rabbit. He tried to grab Chidi's arm, but the skinny boy moved aside swiftly. The crowd cheered. Ezekiel lunged again, missed. Chidi's movements were light, graceful, almost like a dance. Each time Ezekiel tried to grab him, Chidi slipped away. Then, in a quick motion that no one expected, Chidi sidestepped, hooked his foot behind Ezekiel's leg, and pushed gently. Ezekiel stumbled forward and landed flat on the dusty ground. The crowd erupted in laughter. Ezekiel's face turned red. He jumped up, furious, and charged again. Chidi dodged, twisted, and before anyone could blink, Ezekiel was on the ground again, this time, with Chidi's knee pressing lightly against his back. The entire school went silent. Even the birds seemed to pause mid-song. Chidi released him and stood up. "It's over," he said quietly. "I told you I don't fight, but I defend myself." Ezekiel stayed on the ground, too humiliated to speak. The same crowd that used to fear him was now laughing, clapping, and cheering Chidi's name. Some of his followers even drifted away, ashamed to stand beside him. The teachers, who had been watching from a distance, said nothing, but the headmaster later called Chidi to his office. "My boy," he said with a smile, "you taught this school a lesson better than any teacher could. Strength isn't in muscles, it's in the mind and the heart." After that day, Ezekiel changed. He stopped bullying people. At first, it was out of shame, but over time, something deeper grew in him. He began to sit with others, to listen instead of mock, to play fair during sports. One afternoon, he approached Chidi under the same udala tree where it all began. "I don't understand," Ezekiel said quietly. "How did you do it? You're small. I'm stronger." Chidi smiled. "My father was a martial artist," he said softly. "He taught me that fighting isn't about who's bigger. It's about balance and patience. And sometimes, the greatest fight is the one you refuse to start." Ezekiel nodded slowly. "You could have beaten me worse that day." "Yes," Chidi said, "but then I'd be no different from you." From that day, a strange friendship blossomed between them. Ezekiel became one of the most respectful students in the school, often helping younger pupils with their books. And whenever someone asked what changed him, he would smile and say, "A boy once showed me that true strength doesn't come from fists, but from calmness." Years later, when both boys had grown into men, Ezekiel would still tell the story of that day, the day a skinny boy from another town taught the school bully a lesson he would never forget. And in every telling, his voice would carry both pride and gratitude, for it was that humiliation that turned him into a better man. And so, the tale of Ezekiel the Terrible and Chidi the Calm lived on in the town of Humans, told by elders to their children by moonlight. They would end with the same words every time: "The strongest tree is not the one that grows the tallest, but the one that bends with the wind and still stands tall."